For those of you who have been here the last few months, you know we've been exploring this teaching called the 4 skills a meditator needs to develop on this path. This is not from the text, this is from a teacher named Akincano. Came up with this really nifty kind of succinct teaching or succinct way of looking at the practice. The 4 skills are being able to settle the heart and mind, to allow it to come to rest and settle a bit from its usual distracted, kind of frantic, not flirting, could be flirting, but flittering around, you know, just dancing from here to there. Like, can it settle? So that's a skill. You'd think that would be easy, right? But the habit pattern to be distracted is so, I mean, all you have to do is sit down, meditate for 5 minutes, and you know, or you will know, how strong the habit pattern is for the attention to not be present. So we practice. It's a skill. We develop it. That's the first skill, settling the heart and mind. The second skill is moving closer to experience. The ability to, and as you can see now, based on this first skill, based on the ability to be present, somewhat at least, to move, what's called moving closer to experience, meaning staying with experience long enough to notice something about it, which could include our response, our relationship to that experience. So moving closer to experience, resting upon the ability of the first skill to be present. If we're not present, there's no way we can move close to experience. Another way one could say the second skill is becoming more intimate with life. Actually showing up more deeply. Then the third skill is, and this is an interesting one for some people, the skill of moving away from experience. The ability to know when to and how to move away from experience. Sometimes experience, it's not good to be with it. It's just not good for us. It could be a person with a need to set boundaries. It could be a situation that's toxic for us. So it could be outer things that we need to kind of back off from, but it could also be the inner life. And this is really where this third skill is pointing towards. It's more, how do we move away from very difficult thoughts and emotions that are kind of haranguing us, you know? How do we do that? But first is that it's good to do that. You know, we can be in this culture so much like, yeah, we're gonna push through. I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna get to the bottom of it and make it go away. And we have to be wise and skillful when our inner life is really difficult. So the third skill is knowing when and how to move farther away from experience. Because if you walk this path and you really walk it sincerely, you will need this skill at some point. As we open to more and more of life, remember the second skill? I said one way you could say it is becoming more intimate with life. So as we both kind of allow ourselves, but also develop the skills and the ability to open to more and more of life, we're going to come up against things that are very difficult. And that's not wrong or bad, or we're wrong or we're bad, or we're not practicing correctly. It doesn't mean any of that. It means just that's part of life. And when we open to it, it can be challenging. So we need to be skillful in navigating those times when it's really, really challenging with the inner life. And then the last skill is called keeping, he said, his words, keeping the three universals in mind. And what these are is the universal characteristics of our world, of experience. They are characteristics that everything share. That's why it's called universal. So all things of body, of mind, anything we can know in this life share these three characteristics, and that is that they change. If you haven't noticed, they change constantly. And then the second skill is, and we'll get into this, we haven't gotten to the third and fourth skills yet. We're doing a little tangent, but we'll be back. The second skill, the Pali word is dukkha, often translated as suffering. Not broad enough, not subtle enough of a translation. One easy way to look at it, especially in its relationship to change, because these three characteristics are all very interrelated with one another. Because everything is constantly changing, that ultimately things are unsatisfactory. The meal ends. The vacation ends. Last week, my wife and I took the week off. We didn't go anywhere, we just stayed at home, but it was lovely staying at home. And sure enough, right about like Thursday, you know, oh, yeah? That's dukkha. That's a great example of, because things change and don't last, they're not satisfactory. And this is from kind of, again, it's a wide range from the vacation's not going to last to this statement by the Buddha, everything and everyone, you will be separated from everything and everyone that is dear to you. Right? That's the truth. That's not like some pessimistic outlook or some rant that he was on. That's absolutely true for everyone. That's why it's a universal characteristic. Everything that is dear to you and everyone that is dear to you, you will be separated from. For sure, 100%. So you can see the range of this second characteristic. And then the third characteristic, anatta in Pali, translated as not self, very challenging to wrap our heads around, and because when we don't ascertain this truth with our heads, it's not intellectual. None of these truths ultimately are intellectual. They are known experientially. But you could look at anatta, or not self, as saying or exhibiting the fact that everything is interrelated. Everything depends on everything else. There's nothing that hangs out by itself. It doesn't exist. We create this reality, this constructed, consensual, relative reality, based on concepts that things are separate. Bowl, striker, chair, you, me. We create these divisions and concepts because it makes it possible to navigate this realm. And it's good that we do this, but things aren't separate. Everything is constantly arising and passing, dependent on everything else arising and passing. It's an interrelated flux. That's the third characteristic. Everything is constantly arising and passing, coming and going, dependent on everything else that's coming and going. Nothing hangs out independently, which is why that decision yesterday was such a terrible decision, because things can't exist independently. It's not the truth. It's not possible. It's just not possible. You'd have to live in a different universe with different laws. It's like saying it's possible to step off a cliff and not fall. It's like, no, we have this law called gravity. You'd have to be in a different world in order for that not to be there. So that's the fourth characteristic. And we'll go into these much more when we get to them. So we went through the first two: settling the heart and mind, the ability to move closer to experience. And then I took us on a little tangent into what's called the five hindrances, these states of heart and mind that are very, very common and well ingrained in us, that hinder our ability to do two things. To do what? To settle the heart and mind, which is why I brought them in now, but also to see clearly, which is the two things that we do in this practice. Vipassana, meditation, Pali word. Insight meditation, vipassana, to see clearly, is the translation of that word. How do we see clearly? We stop. We stop the franticness. We have to stop first. If we don't stop, there's nothing to do except stay frantic and distracted. We stop, but once we stop, we don't just stop and hang out like, oh, this is nice, because it is nice. It's actually lovely to stop. It's like, oh. But we don't just wallow in awe. We look. Remember I was saying, just in that little minute or two where we were sitting, what's happening? We look. What is arising in our hearts and minds? And how is that? What's that experience like? Is it happy-making? Or is it not happy-making? Is it causing us to suffer? When we see clearly these things, then our natural wisdom that arises starts to steer both our thoughts and our behaviors away from what causes suffering and towards what causes happiness. Why? Because we want to be happy. We've got this going for us. This is crucial. If we didn't want to be happy, this whole thing we wouldn't be doing this. The Buddha wouldn't have taught it. But because we do want to be happy, then it's really important that we know how to do it. Right? If you want to go on a trip and get to somewhere, you got to know how to go. Right? You look, well, I go on 495 and I take this exit. You have to know how to get there, or you're not going to get there. You'll just start driving and you'll just wander forever on the roads, right? Well, that's what we do. This is called samsara, endless wandering, trying to find happiness, but in ways that don't work. In fact, in ways that actually cause us to be unhappy. And endlessly we try, endlessly, because we don't know how. But if we can stop and look, and actually look, and clearly see what leads to happiness and what doesn't, now we actually have a chance to reach our destination. Now we have a roadmap. And that's what the Buddhist teachings are. A detailed, unbelievable, exquisite, brilliant, you could go on and on, roadmap for how to be happy. So we stop and we look. And the hindrances hinder both of those. They hinder the ability of the heart and mind to settle, stop, and they hinder the ability to see clearly. Because when the hindrances are present, our minds are clouded. It's like when it's foggy out, you know, and you can't see well. It's like that. The mind gets fogged and clouded by the hindrances. There's no clarity. They're very common, they're very insidious, and so if we want to walk this path, if we want to get to our destination, we have to be able to deal with the fog, right? And so that's what our little tangent is, because it's important. You have to deal with the hindrances on this path. Everyone, every single person, you have to. The hindrances are, and last time we kind of just did a broad view of them. This time we're going to go into each one more specifically and how to work with it. I'll say a little bit about each one, and then we'll sit, just short sits for like 5 or 10 minutes and see if we can notice that particular hindrance coming up, and then maybe use some of what I've said to be with it or to work with it. Desire. The mind that wants. Aversion, the mind, and when I say mind, I'm always meaning heart and mind. Heart, mind, same word in Pali. Chitta, C-I-T-T-A, doesn't differentiate. You could say the inner life, right? So desire and aversion, the mind that doesn't want. No. I don't want this. I want to move away from it. I want to throw it away. No. Too much energy, restlessness in the body, in the mind, an overabundance of energy. The system isn't settled. Then it's opposite. Too little energy. We might call it sleepiness. The inability, the not enough energy to be present, to be alert, and like, yes, to look, to absolutely, we can stop. We stop very well when there's very little energy. The stopping part goes well, but the looking, not so well. So desire, aversion, you can see two sets of opposites, desire, aversion, restlessness, sleepiness, and then the king or the queen of the hindrances, doubt. Doubt. All different variations of it. From doubting yourself, I can't do this, you know, related with the practice. Everyone else is sitting quietly. I can't sit still. They all know this. I know. I don't understand what he's saying. I'm sure they all do. You know, whatever. Then there's big doubt, not even associated with the practice, right? Just self-doubt, just doubt in our own worthiness, right? We could go into that one, but that's maybe for another. Doubting the teacher. Jesus, this guy's, he's a teacher of the Insight Meditation Society. Doesn't sound that enlightened to me. I thought he might have robes on or something, but or talk, you know, in a certain way. He doesn't seem, you know. So doubt in the teacher, doubt in the teachings themselves. It can't be that simple. No. You mean just notice what's happened? No, no, no. It's got to be more esoteric than that. All sorts of ways that doubt comes up. It's so varied, it's amazing. And it really is, when doubt's happening and we don't know it, we are completely derailed. We can't practice. It's not possible. So these are the 5 hindrances, and let's go into them. Talk a little bit about each one, and then we'll sit for a short period. We'll take a short bathroom break about halfway through. Okay? Sound good? Now, just to say too, this isn't like, you know, the hindrances, you know. It's not exciting. This isn't the exciting part of the path or the practice, because we're dealing with the, you know, things that are hard for us and that we struggle with. But we can't get around it. We have to, you know, the way out is through, right? So we have to engage with these in order to walk this path. And you'll see there's some repetition for each one of these and how to work with it. The first thing we want to do with desire, it's the first one we'll talk about, is name it. Know it's happening. In the suttas, the monks and nuns, they go, Mara, I see you. Mara is like the personification of these hindrances, of these difficult mind states. Ah, Mara, I see you. See you trying to throw me off course here, right? Because it gets personified. But, you know, what it is, it's a mind state. But what they're saying, when they say, Mara, I see you, they're saying, ah, I see clearly what's happening. Ah, there's desire in the mind now. Name it. Say it. Say it to yourself. Oh, so it's perfectly clear. Oh, that's what's happening right now. You know, you've been 45 minutes on the internet, surfing this, those nice shoes, or this going, and you kind of come up for air and go, oh, wow, I've been on here for 45 minutes. What's going on? Oh, desire. There's desire in the mind. I'm wanting. I'm looking to see what nice stuff might be out there that I can get. Oh, desire. We can know it. So, naming it, seeing it clearly. Some of these are going to be associated with just the sitting practice. Some will be associated, can just also with daily life, like with naming it. That could be while we're sitting, but it could also just be in daily life as well. Especially when we're sitting, but it could be in daily life. But when you're sitting and you wake up to desire, because desire is a suffering state, but it's hard to know it, because when we're daydreaming, when we're sitting and then the mind is off on some desirous fantasy, it's pleasant, right? But remember, pleasant and happiness are not the same thing. Pleasant is pleasant, but it's not necessarily happy. And the way we can see that desire is a suffering state is that when you're meditating, because hopefully you're relaxed when you're meditating. The body is relaxed, it's at ease. And then you've been on this little trip, this fantasy, desirous fantasy. It could be for a person, it could be for objects, it could be for an experience, whatever. The mind is looking for yum, basically, right? Yum, like, pleasant. And then, you know, then you wake up, right? You have the wake up moment and you realize, oh, right, I'm meditating. Right at that moment, check your body. And in time, you'll be able to feel that it's tense. It's not relaxed. Even though that fantasy was pleasant, the body, because the body doesn't lie. The body is always truthful. Remember that. I'm glad this is recorded. The body does not lie. It's truthful. It will always give you truthful information. You break your leg, you feel pain. You don't feel like tickly or pleasant. You feel pain. Yeah? The body doesn't lie. When you have that wake-up moment after a pleasant fantasy, check, and as you get good at connecting with your body, you'll feel the agitation. You'll feel the tension. You'll feel that it's not a peaceful state. It's agitated, actually. And instead of me saying it or you reading in a book, in that moment, through your own experience, you will know, oh, desire is a suffering state. It's not peaceful. It's not easeful. There's not contentment in it. There's agitation, tension, constriction. But we have to look because again, when we're in the realm of desire, we're in the realm of pleasant. And we mistake. This is, remember the wandering, endless wandering? This is our mistake. We think the road to happiness is paved with desire. I mean, with pleasant. We think pleasant leads us to happiness. But it's not true. It's actually not true. Pleasant leads us to pleasant. And it's not bad or wrong, it's just not happiness. And we can see that. If you tend towards desire, each of us has, our minds will tend more towards wanting, or more towards not wanting, or sometimes more towards just spacing out. But if you're someone like me, my mind is much more of a desirous type. It's not, I don't get aversive much. I don't get angry. It's just not, but I do have a lot of desire. So if you are that kind of person, another way to work with desire is to feel the compulsion you have towards pleasantness. Feel it, especially when you're sitting, and the mind won't stop going after this, pleasant that fantasy, or even in your daily life. Can't stop. Wanting this, eating, right? It's like you can't stop. Feel that. Feel the compulsive nature of desire and the suffering in that. That's easy to feel. If you can connect with the compulsiveness of the mind to be desirous and reaching, and really connect with that, it's very easy to see that that's a suffering state. And of course, this is a nascent form of addiction. This is where all addictions start. Here's one that will be true for all the hindrances. Be aware, once you notice that desire is present, notice if you're judging yourself for it or not. Oh, there I go again. See, I can't do this. Doubt. I'm such an idiot for doing aversion. Often one hindrance, other hindrances will come jumping in, and there'll be like a big glom of them. Have 2 or 3 or 4 of them going all at once. These are very strong, insidious. Driving here, I was just like, let's just do an experiment, just for a couple minutes. It doesn't take long. Just while I'm driving, just watch my mind and just my experience for a couple minutes, and let's just see what hindrances are present. They're all there. I had kind of a long day. It's like, not that I don't want to be here, but a little aversion to, and then it was kind of like, sleepiness. There was some low energy. Then, the hindrances, it's like, people are really going to want to hear that. Doubt. It was like, it's very interesting. But it's not a problem. It's not wrong or bad. They're just conditioned to arise in our mind. And if we judge ourselves for any of them, desire in this case, but for any of them, if we judge ourselves, we can't see them clearly. Because the judging itself is a hindrance. It's aversion. It's wrong. It's bad that I'm having desire. And remember, when a hindrance is present, it's foggy. and we can't see clearly. We can't see that the desire isn't even ours. It's just desire. We don't desire. Desire desires. We don't own it. But we do have to deal with it. The Burmese meditation master Sayadaw U Tejaniya says, your mind is not yours. It's not yours. But you are responsible for it. Here it is. The desire is not yours. It just arose due to conditions. But here it is. What are you going to do with it? Your mind is not yours, but you are responsible for it. The whole dharma is contained in that quote. So really, and you know, as a culture, we're pretty good at giving ourselves a hard time, right? So really watch to see when you notice a hindrance, is there judgment? Remember, everything is impermanent. This desire will go. It will pass, because it has to. Because that's one of the three characteristics of everything, that things are impermanent. Let it be. It'll go. You don't have to chase it, but you don't have to push it away either. Just know it's there. Remember the first thing. Name it. Ah, desire. It will go on its own because that's its nature. Here's a kind of a cute Buddhist term, but all sankharas self-liberate. Meaning they all follow their nature and dissolve. We don't have to push anything away or change anything because it's the nature for everything to change. You don't have to push or get rid of the desire. It will do that itself. Simply remain present. And again, this is probably more for people whose mind tend more to desire, but could be for anyone. Notice that when desire is in the mind, where your attention is. Where is it? Is it on you or another person? It's on you and what you want, right? What can I get? What am I get? What do I want? I. Yeah? And if there's a lot of desire in the mind a lot of the time, that means our attention is on ourselves a lot of the time. And how's that go for you when you think about yourself a lot of the time and only yourself? What does that lead to? Does that lead to close friendships? Does that lead to a fulfilling life? What does it lead to? Really important, especially for those of us who tend towards desire. Yes, it's pleasant to think about the ice cream, what I want. It's pleasant, but what does it lead to? Is it for our own does it support our own well-being? And you know, in the teachings, of course, the answer is it doesn't. But that's cheap. You want to see that yourself. You really want to know that yourself. So this can be one way to do that. Notice the attention being on yourself so much and what that's like. How separating that is. How lonely that is, actually. And then a last reflection, and this is for any of the hindrances or any time you have something in your mind that is called in the teachings unskillful, meaning something that leads to your unhappiness. The Buddha said, what the mind frequently ponders upon becomes the inclination of the mind. Basically, you're getting good or you're habituating whatever is present in your mind. It makes it more likely that it will come up again in the mind in the future. And then, is that what we want? Is this where I want my mind to become habituated towards? That can be a very powerful kind of like little wake up, like, whoa, no, let me let this go. Let me not feed this because I don't want to go, I don't want my mind to be more and more and more desirous in this case. Desire's tricky, again, because it's pleasant. It's pleasant. We like pleasant. And there's nothing wrong with liking pleasant. It's not like we're supposed to stop liking our favorite flavor of ice cream. It's when we mistake that is the route to happiness, that's when we run into problems. And so we need to see the suffering nature of desire. We have to experience, we have to unmask it. We have to take apart this pleasant, happy, conjoined thing that we've got believing. We have to see that that's not true. And an important way to see that is to see desire as not our friend. It's not happy making. Okay, so let's do a short sit, and be with your breath or your body, sitting, to help yourself be present, and then just notice desire arising in your mind. It could be as simple as, gee, I want the sit to be over. I want. Or the mind, starts to wander, and you notice where it goes. Was the mind wandering based on desire? Just check and see. Don't judge, don't condemn, simply check, and when you notice it, name it. Oh, this is desire. Okay. Use the body to help yourself settle this first skill, this stopping part of our practice. The body's here and now, so connecting with it helps the heart and mind be here and now. And if you happen to notice another hindrance, you can name that, but really we're kind of on the lookout for any forms of desire. Wanting, lust, yearning, craving. The mind wanders, we wake up. Notice, where'd it go? What was the flavor of that? Was it flavored with or driven by desire? Did anyone notice desire? Yeah? No? Yeah? Good. Good. I want to read you something. This is the Buddha talking in the suttas. He's telling us how to practice. Okay? He's telling us how to practice. Here in monks, when sensual desire is present in him, the monk knows there is sensual desire in me. Or, when sensual desire is absent, he knows, there is no sensual desire in me. And he goes on through all the hindrances. Do you hear him say, don't have sensual desire? No. He says, be aware when it's there. Do you see the implications of this? It's not about right and wrong. It's not about right and wrong. It's about paying attention to what's present so that we can know what leads to happiness and what leads to suffering. The heart isn't going to let go of desire or aversion or anything because it's bad or wrong. Right? I mean, have you tried that? Right? Have you tried navigating your life based on right and wrong? How's that going? What does that lead to? Striving, guilt, getting tied up in knots. It doesn't work. When the mind sees clearly enough that something causes us to suffer, it'll let go. Wisdom lets go. We don't let go. Wisdom will let go. It's not an intellectual thing. You touch a hot stove, it's very clear that you're suffering. Perfect clarity, right? What happens? Pull away. Stop. No, don't want that anymore. That's what happens in the mind. Just like, nope, no, thank you. Been there, done that, no thank you. But it's not willful. It's not based on right or wrong or us trying to be good. It's based on the truth. And that classic, it's the truth that will set you free. Okay. Aversion, the opposite of desire. The heart and mind that doesn't want. Hatred, ill will, anger, rage, fear, anxiousness. All these are all variations of no. What's good about aversion is that it's clear it's a suffering state. With desire, we need to really investigate it and see because it's pleasant. But with aversion, it's crystal clear that this is a suffering state. Once we can be in it, right? But once we wake up to it and see what's going on, there's no doubt in our mind that it's a suffering state, right? Very clear. Because of this, folks who tend towards aversion get freer quicker. Why? Because it's clearer they're suffering. Us desire folks, we're a little slower on the draw because we need to. It takes a while to see that, oh, this actually is not in my best interest. It's pleasant, but it doesn't lead to happiness. So the aversive folks, it's good. It's good karma because the suffering is clear. As with all the hindrances, name it. Oh, I'm pissed off, or I'm afraid, I'm anxious, oh, I'm full of rage, I'm frustrated. Name it. Feel the suffering nature of it. Aversion isn't always completely easy. Sometimes we can be quite righteously angry, right? And sometimes anger can fill us with energy, and we can kind of feel alive and we kind of like that sometimes, yeah? Righteous anger, yeah. So look and of course, check with our old friend, our old truthful friend, the body. Check and see. The body will tell you it's suffering. It'll be, with anger, it'll all tied up in knots. Also, as with desire, notice the compulsion towards aversion if you're a real aversive type. You walk into a situation, you're looking and seeing what's wrong. Right? They're not doing that right. I mean, there's aversive people here right now, right? Why do they got these lights? What's this about? This is stupid, and it's getting in the way, or I don't like the way the chairs are set up, or It's just kind of automatic. notice that, and notice, as with desire, notice the compulsion. Notice that in that moment, we're puppets. We're just compelled to act, to think in a certain way. That compulsion is suffering. As with desire, be aware if you're judging yourself for being angry. Are you piling aversion on top of aversion? Right? Hating the hate. Hating yourself for being angry. Check. Also, as with desire, remembering what the mind frequently ponders about becomes the inclination of the mind. Do you want to become an angry person? No. Then let it go. Or have the intention to let it go. You're not in control of to really being able to let it go, but at least know that, oh, this is something that I don't want to feed. And you might say, well, what do I do when I'm angry? Classically, and this is do loving kindness. Just change the channel. I know it seems weird and kind of like, but it actually can be helpful. You're pissed off and you're, oh, may all beings know a freedom from anger. It's cooling. It's cooling. Anger is boiling and simmering. Metta, loving kindness, is cooling. May I be free from anger. May I be free from this suffering state. The classical antidote to anger or aversion is metta, is loving kindness. There's other things you can do. There's other ways to work with it. That's like a straight dharma way. Here's more of a psychological way, but also, of course, dharma related. It's all dharma. Anger in this psychological world is considered what's called a secondary emotion. It's not a primary emotion. It's a reaction to an emotion that comes first. And an example I like to use is someone cuts you in front of you on the road. What happens is, I'll do slow motion. Right? And we don't notice what comes before anger is always more tender, more vulnerable, usually some form of fear. And the anger comes in to cover it over. Because when we're angry, then we're in charge and we can do something, and that shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't have, this is wrong in this world where people cut you off. It's like we're railing. It's like, no, you live in a world where people cut you off. You live in a world where people die in the streets. You live in a world where your feelings get hurt. Anger comes in and covers over more vulnerable, tender emotions. If you find yourself angry, you can kind of look and see, ooh, what did I just miss? What just happened that I didn't catch? What was that? That person said something and hurt your feelings. You felt bad. Your heart, your tender heart got hurt. It got bruised. You felt cast out. You felt rejected. Oh, they're a jerk. It's like, oh, but right before that, what was there right before that? Very interesting way to work with anger. And then if we can connect with that, oh, that was painful. Oh. And be with that, be with second skill, move closer to our experience. Being with suffering is compassion. If we can be with those tender emotions that often get covered over by anger, now we're connecting with our own suffering. And that's compassion. that's a good thing. Very interesting way to work with anger. See what you missed, because there's absolutely something there. It's never, anger never comes first. There's always something, some form of fear that comes before it. And then one more, kind of again in kind of a psychological bent, but again, it's all dharma. See anger as a way of trying to control your world. An example I love to give, maybe some of you have heard this once or twice already, but one time I had planned this great little vacation for my wife's birthday, and it was a surprise. It was one of those things like, pack your bags for 2 days and get in the car. And I had it all planned. I was like, yeah, I was really happy. And we had to, it involved driving to Boston and getting on the fast ferry to P-Town, right? And so I'm driving to the Mass Pike, like, and I go on the on-ramp, and it's blocked, and there's this huge sign that says, Mass Pike closed. And my mind went, no. Just no. 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 We try to control our world somehow through the anger, like, oh, no, it has to be open. I was so upset. I was livid. It was so bad that Laura finally had to intervene. She said, Chaz, this is my birthday, and this is supposed to be fun, and this is not fun. Okay. We try to control our world with anger. Try to control others. Try to control situations. Why? We try to control the world so it's how we want it. Remember, until we know better, our only way we know to try to be happy is through having things be the way we want them. Pleasant. And when they're not, anger comes in as a form of trying to railing against that. And maybe if we can be pissed off enough, the Mass Pike will open. And maybe if we get pissed off enough, they'll change, right? We all know that one, yeah? See anger as a way of trying to control your world, railing against how it is. And again, it's not yours, it's a habituated mind state that comes up when the conditions are supportive for it to, i.e. when things are going the way we don't like them to. Because we so want to be happy. And we only have this one tool in our toolkit, which is for things to be the way we want them to. And then they're not. And we're angry. So we can see that. You can see this whole thing in a flash if you can wake up to being angry and see it. The teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, is playing out every second. And the Buddha said, if beings only had little dust in their eyes, they'd be able to see what I see. So anger is it's potent form of being able to see the Dharma, being able to see the truth of things, of how things unfold, how we create our own suffering. So don't push it away. Don't make yourself wrong or bad for it. See it as an opportunity to learn and wake up. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, so let's do another short sit. See if any aversion comes up. It doesn't have to be anger. There's other forms of aversion. Anxiety, fear, rage, frustration, ill will. And notice if you're okay with it or not when you see it. That's a really important one, especially with anger.